Welcome to Catflap Chats. Just before we start, a little bit of housekeeping. So check out catflapchats.com where you can find our back catalogue of podcasts, our merch and our hats, and you can also find our amazing sponsors. Check out our Instagram TV videos every morning, brought to you by JPG Group Electrical. I would normally we'd do this in person. We'd have a beer in person, like the good old days, and we'd be able to have a chat. I see you've got a beer there of some type.
I do.
Oh, the nice Camden. So I have got the rivals here.
You've got a nice tiny rebel,
which I am gonna pour out. And whilst I do, welcome to Jessica Fishlock to Catflap Chats. Thank you so much for coming on. What is going on in your world? Wales's most capped footballer, won everything across, 7, 8, 9, 10 leagues. So much to go through.
I've lost you a little bit. Hello.
Hello.
Hi. I don't know what happened there. It just froze, so I just left.
Yeah, I don't know what the hell happened there.
No,
I don't even know what point I got to now where before you froze.
It was just the beginning bit when you were pouring your beer.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, so we'll just fucking pick it up from there then. Look, we'll edit it. No one will know. It'll be fine.
No one will know.
So I've got a nice Tiny Rebel brewery. You're drinking a beer there. I'm delighted to welcome Jessica Fishlock, MBE, Wales and Reading midfielder, played for a heap of teams, won almost, if not everything, in the club game so far. I want to say 120 caps. Am I there or thereabouts?
Something like that, yeah. I don't even know.
Something like that. Most capped Welsh player, 30-odd goals, 15 titles, 2 Champions League, 11 teams, 7 countries, Stonewall Sport champion, Adidas athlete, must have other sponsors. J Labs, one of your other sponsors. I know that. How are you doing? Thank you so much for coming on. What is life like at the moment?
Well, thank you for having me for one. Life is still pretty crazy, I think, for everybody, you know, with the current climate. It's nice to be home for a little bit. I go back to America actually in a few weeks. So I'm actually really excited for that. I really kind of miss my life over there. So, you know, I'm going to miss being home. All my family's in Wales, obviously, so I get to see them all the time. So that's really nice. But I would be lying if I didn't say I was ready to kind of get back to my life a little bit.
Yeah, I bet. I was looking through your career, and we'll get onto that a bit later. But it's mad, like you're based in America, but then you just in the off season there you're in loans at every other, like. What's it like being an international club player across the globe? Because every 6 months, 12 months, you're playing for a different team and having to adjust. Like, what's that like?
Yeah, I know. It's interesting. I mean, a lot of people that talk to me about that always kind of are like, you know, why and why. And I get it. I get why people kind of question it. I think for me at the beginning, it was just a need. The NWSL league at that point only ran for like 7 months, which sounds nice. So you can get a break, which is lovely. But as an international player, it is impossible to not play competitive games for 5 months of a year. It's just impossible. So then that's when I decided that in the off season, I needed to go and play somewhere. And then for me, it was like, okay, where can I go that is still going to challenge me? Because I don't know, I'm like, I don't know, a little bit of a sicko, I guess. Like, I just love the challenge, you know, I love being pushed to my limits, to see just how far I can go, how good I can get. You know, sometimes I fail, which is fine. But I don't ever kind of want to go somewhere that is not going to challenge me, because my personality is that I will probably get bored really, really, really easily. And then I just won't, then I'll just hate it because I don't get anything out of it. So that's why it's always different places, because I enjoy the challenge of something new, a new culture, a new team to kind of get into, a new team to break into. You know, Frankfurt had a great team. I had to try and break into that. At Lyon, best team in the world, had to try and break into the 11. And it's those moments that really help me find my best self. Same with Seattle. And I don't know, so that's why I choose to do that. And, you know, like I said, majority of the time I'm successful. There are times when I fail. But even in those moments when I fail, I still find something about myself that I never had before, you know?
Yeah, it must be not only give you that sort of impetus as an athlete to want to perform and prove to your teammates, prove to yourself every time that you can go and do that, but also it must have rounded you as a person. I mean, like, what do we say? 11 teams across 7 countries. You've been playing for, you know, since, what was it, 2002? I think you started out with Cardiff City. I could be wrong there. You know, that to play at the top level for that long, one, you can't be a dickhead, and two, you must have some mental resilience and some characteristics that if you could bottle that up, people would really value that.
Yeah, look, you know, at times, to be honest with you, I'll probably have been a dickhead, which is fine. You know, I'm okay with that. I have accepted that a long time ago. I definitely feel the last kind of 10 years, the last decade, I've definitely had all these experiences and have grown into the person that I want to be, which, you know, as we all know, the older you get, the more you realize, oh shit, I probably couldn't do that. I probably shouldn't do that. I probably can't do that. But honestly, living in all these kind of different countries and meeting all these different people and their different cultures and how they live and what they deem is acceptable and not acceptable, it definitely has shaped me as a person. But then, like you said, exactly the same, like the mental resilience of going and playing in Germany, where their culture is just crazy. And then France as well, you know, I don't speak a word of French. And you know what the French are like, you know, the French, you know. Look, living in all these countries have definitely made me, resilient beyond belief. But even just playing for my national team has made me resilient beyond belief, you know. Like you say, getting to the top is almost the easiest thing to do, but staying at the top for as long as kind of being an elite athlete, it is mentally the hardest thing any athlete can ever do, is stay there. That's why whenever you see somebody that has been at the top for years and years, you know, Tom Brady, Ronaldo, all these type of guys, you got Fada, who plays Steph Houghton, the women, you got Pino, Carly Lloyd, Alex Morgan, all these girls, Marta, all these women that just formiga as have been at the top and have won things time and time again, yet get up the next morning after winning a World Cup and go into their club. I'm like, you know, we have Pino, and she come back from the World Cup, and even I'm sat next to her, and I'm like, why are you even here? Like, you don't need to be here. Like, you just won the World Cup for second time now, back-to-back World Cups. Yeah. Why are you in my locker room? Like, why are you not like somewhere blind drunk right now on a beach? But that's the elite mentality, right? They win it, they wake up, they go back, and they want to get better. So I guess I can I learned from those for years, you know.
Yeah. What got you into football in the first place? I know that obviously growing up in South Wales, and you know, they got the Bluebirds, Cardiff City. What got you into football, and why football over any other sport or a different profession?
Yeah, great question. Look, I only funny story. I only got into football by chance. I'm one of 6 kids. So during the summer holidays, obviously, it was hard for me, mum and me dad, because, you know, we couldn't just go and do whatever we wanted to do, because there were 6 of us, and my dad's working and my ma's at home with 6 teenage kids, thinking, I don't friggin' know what I'm going to do here. I feel like, you know, there's only one of me. Yeah. So I had to go wherever my sister went, right, naturally. And she went to a soccer camp, and I went there with her, and I fell in love, honestly. My mum said that, I mean, I was 7 at the time, so I don't remember that much, but my mum said that I went there, came back, and all that ever came out of my mouth after that day was football. I wasn't interested in anything else. I mean, I grew up playing loads of sports, cricket, rugby, hockey, badminton, you name it, I played it. My mum actually says I was a better rugby player than a footballer and a cricketer, actually. But no, football was my love, my one true love, probably, for all my sins.
Hey, but look where it's taking you now. Look at the friends you've made from it, and the experiences, and you've got a better trophy cabinet than most like professional men who play football.
I know.
That's not too bad. What was it? So what was growing up like then? Like, so you went to this camp, and like, when did it stop becoming just like that part-time hobby and start becoming a bit more focused around academies and potential? You know, like when I grew up, I played rugby and football, and then I had to drop one to play the other because I couldn't keep doing both. And like I said, you played all these different sports. Most kids do as they're growing up. Like, when did it stop becoming just that hobby and actually start becoming a bit more of a potential career?
Look, I think like around 12, 13, I was getting caught between like going to tournaments on the weekend, and it would be like, oh, football's over here, or cricket got this, or hockey got this. Yeah. And I knew for me, like, it was really hard because for me, I just want to go play football. So I'd be like, no, I'm not going hockey. No, I'm not going cricket. But obviously back then, like 12-year-old me, you're talking about, well, God, over, dare I say it, over 20 years ago.
Yeah, we're similar age we are.
Yeah, there was no, people's thought process on me not wanting to do anything apart from go and play football was questionable, you know?
Okay.
Playing hockey back then as a female was probably more realistic, right?
Stereotypically.
Very stereotypical, yeah.
Yeah.
But, you know, I just wasn't interested in that. So I would just be like, I'm not going to play hockey. So it's not happening. I was just lucky that, you know, I did have a supportive family, really, and mother specifically, because she would just be like, yeah, whatever you want to do, don't worry about it. And then I'd say I got to like 15. And then I was like, nah, I'm going to make this happen. I don't care how I'm going to do it. That was my attitude then. At that age, I was like, nah. And then I got obviously 16, ended up obviously leaving school, not going to college, getting a full-time job so I could pay for my football.
Yeah.
Because back then, obviously, you had to pay for everything. You had to pay for your boots, you had to pay for your travel, you had to pay your subs, you had to pay your weekly training sessions. So, at that age, that's when I decided that I was not only going to do football, but I was going to somehow find a pathway that allowed me to be the best that I could be at somehow. Like, I just knew that that's what I was going to make happen somehow.
Did you, like, as a girl growing up, and I'm not from South Wales, I grew up down in Plymouth in England, so I didn't really know many girls who played traditional male sports, which I don't really like that term, but you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, for sure. No.
Lads played football and rugby, girls played netball and hockey when I grew up, right?
Yeah.
And so, did you get much stick? Were you classed as a footballer as a kid? Were you brilliant, or were you a late developer?
No, I was brilliant young.
Yeah. So, did you get much stick from boys that you were better with, girls that weren't into sport because they were too cool and they wanted to be hanging around the boys and that sort of stuff? Like, or was it widely accepted that you were fine and you could play and you could do whatever?
Yeah, look, to be honest, I was a little bit lucky in that area. I understand where you're getting at. I had 2 older brothers, and I would go and play with their team actually, and they were super supportive, obviously. It helped that I was good as well, so you know, it wasn't like they hated having me around, you know. It was more like, oh, she's on our team, like she's on our team. And to be fair, like in school was probably the hardest because we just weren't allowed to play football when I was growing up. You know, we had to choose between fucking, excuse my French, but we had like dance or gymnastics. And I was like, well, look, I sure as shit I'm not going to do gym, and I don't particularly want to learn how to dance. So that was harder for me, but on the same kind of level, at like break times and that, I had a really good group of girlfriends that didn't really like football but knew that I played football, so they were fine. And obviously they loved it as well because I would play with all the boys that everybody fancied, so that was great. So it was one of those, you know. I found school really hard, but I had a good group of girls around me, and the boys were fine. They just knew I loved football and didn't really care about nothing else.
Did you get much? I can imagine this. Like where I grew up in Plymouth, it's quite rough in areas, very similar to Cardiff. Some lovely areas, and then some rougher areas, shall we say? And I can imagine that if we had a girl play for our school team, for example, or even my Saturday team growing up, the other team would have given us loads of stick, and then we didn't have a girl. We didn't have a bloke that could bang in 50 goals a season or 30-yard screamers either, so it didn't fucking matter. But I know that there would have been some stick, and there would have been some, especially those Saturdays, and like parents, you know, almost embarrassed that their lad is getting embarrassed by a girl who's tearing it up. Like, did you experience any of that at all? Like, not in school, but then on the outside as well?
Yeah. It was funny actually. Like, I don't know about you, but I'm from quite. I need to phrase this correctly. I'm from quite a rough area in Cardiff. I'm from Lanramy. I call it.
So I used to play rugby for Rumney, so I know some lads down
from
there. Good
Lanramy,
blokes,
so you understand.
Yeah.
You understand.
Yeah, brilliant.
I love it. I want to move. I still want to live there when I come home. I want to live there. I love Lanramy. But yeah, you know.
Yeah.
Not the poshest of areas, I'll tell you that. You know, it's no Rose. But yeah, we used to apply for like loads of five-a-side tournaments, right? Because back then, I don't know if it exists anymore. When at the leisure centre, I live right by a leisure centre, and then each part of Cardiff, east, west, you know, south, whatever, would have their leisure centre and their five-a-side tournaments. So we'd get a little team together and we'd go around all these tournaments. But obviously, every little team would go to all the tournaments. So there's like little rivalries, right? Like us and Pentwyn and the Ely boys and all that would have like these massive rivalries, and they would hate us because we would always win, right?
Yeah.
But I used to get a lot of stick. Of course, I used to get a lot of stick, right? Girl, good and winning at this game that I shouldn't be good at, that we shouldn't be winning in. But I'm not gonna lie to you, right? If I said to you I was like quivering in the corner, that would be a lie. I was probably causing more shit than anyone. And in my team was like one of my older brothers, who's great, who's like a little bit more of a reserved lad. You know, he's not a fighter, let's say that. He's not a fighter. So you know, it would be like, Jess. And they're like, what? I'm not having that. Look at him. And he's like, yeah, but like, you're not the one they're gonna hit, are you? Like, they're not gonna hit you. I used to be like, oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. So yeah, of course, like that was natural. But like I said, I was always surrounded by really good people that would always kind of protect me a little bit from the worst of the worst. And so I could just carry on navigating my way through this male pathway to try and find my own kind of place, really. So I was lucky. I was very lucky.
Do you reckon you got like extra treatment on the pitch as you were growing up?
Probably. But I think it made me better. You know, I always say now, playing with boys, I think up until about 15 was the best thing, really. The girls should do it now.
Yeah. What is it like now for a kid coming through, especially a girl coming through, who's playing either Saturday football or school football? Is there more provision in place? I would assume so, because we're in a different age now to 20 years ago, but I genuinely don't know.
Yeah, there's definitely loads more now at school level for kids, for girls specifically, which I think is huge, like absolutely huge. I probably, you know, if I'm being honest, I wouldn't go down the route of segregating women's or boys' teams at school. I just wouldn't. I just do not see the point in that. I think it's better for the girl game, the boys game, society, if you can just accept at school level that boys and girls can play the same sport. It's genderless, it's just a sport at the end of the day. And no one's really developed enough at that point for it to be such a massive gap in physical attributes. But it will just always come down to how comfortable girls are in that environment, you know? So yeah, I personally think for as long as possible, you keep them together, but it's not always that easy, you know, with society and environments, and kind of how comfortable girls are in male environments. We all know how difficult that is already. So that's probably why that doesn't happen. But there's definitely a much better facilities and scope for girls to play, you know, football, rugby, the sports that typically weren't for girls. It's now far more available, which is so important.
Yeah, I think if my little girl, I've got a little girl, she's 7, and last week, or it'll be 2 weeks ago now, bought her first pair of football boots. Nice. Adidas as well. I've got Copas, so she's got a pair of Copas as well. Yeah, but I'm a bit snobby when it comes to boots. Like, ever since the 2002 Predator Manias, that's been my boot of choice if I can find it. Like, you know.
Yeah,
the
Preds were great.
Oh mate, unbelievable! Like, unbelievable. I don't know if I'm that fussed. I mean, I could talk about boots for days. I don't know if I'm that fussed on these new boots now with the sock and the synthetic material. Like, I'm a bit more old school. Like, Copa Mundial, a World Cup, or the older Preds. That's my cup of tea.
Yeah, the David Beckham Preds, can't beat them, mate. You can't beat them.
Mate. Beckham, Zidane, and Johnny Wilkinson. Yeah. They're the three that had them. So for me, that was like boot porn for me. That was absolutely class. Yeah, and she loves it. Like, we went up. I live in Heath. Go up Heath Park. Took a rugby ball. Took a football. Rugby. She had the rugby ball. I tackled her. She's like, "Oh, don't know if I like that." And then she come over. She's like, "Don't think rugby for me. I think I prefer football." And for some reason, which breaks my heart, her mum likes Liverpool, so she started supporting Liverpool. Which we're not together, probably for a good reason. So because I'm like, right. Well, if I knew that, there might not have been a mirror either. But like, I'm now like, right, how can I get her into Man U? But she loves football now, like, so.
That's really good, though.
Yeah, and I'm one of those guys where play as many sports as possible, do as many things as possible, whether it's music, sport, art, whatever, and you will fall into something that you enjoy, and she'll have all the support from me that she needs, you know. I know not everyone gets that. Like, girls, when I was growing up, you know, PE, they'd have every Monday there'd be like a note from you say a note from their mum, but there'd be a note, can't do it because they're this, that, girl problems, and it's like, it is sad to see, and I hope society is changing a little bit in that respect. Yeah,
no, me too. I've always said that the PE when I was growing up was, you know, the reality of it was that I was extremely sporty, right?
Yeah.
And I hated PE, which tells you that something's wrong, you know, in the way that it is brought up, in the way that it's taught, in the way that it's the environment that is being created at schools. Like, PE, as far as I'm concerned, and, you know, Gary Lineker came out the other day and said it should be on the curriculum behind maths and English. And he's right, because the what sport gives you as a human and as a kid, the sport itself is not even the issue at that point. It don't matter if you can't catch, if you can't throw, if you can't do these things. That's not the actual point of sport for when you're that age. It is about inclusion. It is about friendship. It is about social. It is about awareness, you know, empathy at that point, understanding, teamwork, like thinking about others. You learn all that in sports and in a team environment. So yeah, he's right. Like, it's so important. So I hope that it realizes that and gets way better at school, because it should, like, it needs to.
Yeah, I completely agree there. Let's look. I'd like to look at, do you want to talk about your Wales career first, or your club career?
Sure, we can go Wales. Can I go and grab another beer, though?
Yeah, of course you can. You crack on.
See, this is what I'm like at a pub. Once you get me in, I don't leave.
Hey, that's my type of girl.
Okay, it's up to you. Whatever you want to talk about, I'm happy to talk.
Let's go club career first then.
Okay.
Obviously started out Cardiff City, Bristol. So again, back then especially, my knowledge of the women's game and teams, good teams, good leagues, and across the world, my understanding is, and I could be wrong, but women's football was stronger in other areas of the world as opposed to here. Look at America, for example, massive over there, where here teams like Man United are only just formed their team a couple of years ago. Yeah, it's one of the biggest clubs in the world.
Yeah.
What was it like playing over here at first, and then why did you then look to Cardiff City, Bristol, then you went across to AZ Alkmaar? How did that come about? Like, is in the female game, is it natural for a girl to be playing abroad so early on in their career, where here it's almost like seen to be, especially in the men's game, it's almost like unheard of until the last few years, where Bayern Munich is now coming in for your under 21 players. Everyone's going, what the hell's going on? Because they can't get a game here. Like, what's it like in the girls' game? And what was it like for you growing up?
Look, back then, before I left to go to AZ, women's football over here was just non-existent.
Yeah.
And that's the truth. And, people will be like, oh, it's harsh. It's not harsh at all. I was at Cardiff for ages. My local club, I have my entire career to thank them for. Went to Bristol. They were in, I think they called it the Premier League at that point, before it was the WSL. And it was just, that was when Arsenal were like unbelievable. The women unbelievable. They're great now, but back then they were unbelievable. But it was shit. Like, the league was shit. There was no money in it. I think it got paid like, I don't know, £50, not even that, 25. Wouldn't even cover my frigging travel and the bridge. And then what happened was I was playing for Wales, right? National team. So I'd been playing for Wales for ages. And I was still working full time at this point. So I was working full time.
Yeah.
Playing for Bristol in the Premier League.
Premier
League, right? I'm playing for Wales, and I was working 40 hours a week. Right? That was reality.
That's mad. It's mad.
Reality, right? We played against Holland in a European Championship qualifier, and the guy who was the assistant coach for the Netherlands was just about to go and be the head coach of AZ.
Okay.
So we played Holland, and obviously he was at the game. And then the following Monday after the game, when I was in work, I had an email from the FAW saying that this guy had been in touch and wanted my contact details. Sent me an email that day and said, I watched the game, I want to sign you. And I was like, is this a joke?
Yeah.
I was like, is this like, you got pranked or something? But no word of lie. I emailed him back. I was like, is this for real? He was like, yeah. I think I left my job like that day. Just I think it was 2 months I had to give notice, but I didn't stay for 2 months. I just was like, see ya.
Yeah.
And I just dropped everything, like my whole life, just left within a couple of months, I think. And I went and lived in Holland for 2.5 years, I think.
So at that point, were you then a full-time professional, didn't ever have to work another job elsewhere?
Yes, I was a full-time professional over there, but I did actually get a job because I was so bored.
Okay.
At the beginning.
Yeah.
And then no, I think just for like 6 months, and then I've never worked since. Been a full time. I think it was just really hard because like I said, I worked 40 hours, playing for my country, playing for my club, and then I went somewhere where I was done at like 2:00 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And I lived I live 20 minutes away from Amsterdam. I was a young girl. I was like, I don't know what to do here, because I just kept going back and forth to Amsterdam. I was like, I think I'll never forget the coach there. His name was Ed. And everyone talks about coaches, right? This guy, for me, I still talk to him now, was phenomenal. He understood my life position. So he allowed me to go a little bit crazy for like the first few months. And then he would reel me in and was like, look, you have to stop now. Like, you can't keep going to Amsterdam. You have to relax. You have to, he taught me how to rest, how to prioritize my life. And he taught me how to kind of play football, basically. When I got there, he was just like, everything England football, no, rip up, put it in the bin. We start from Dutch football. You have to trust the ball, love the ball, want the ball. He was like, none of no long ball. And he wanted me to keep my aggression and my passion, but he wanted me to learn to love the ball, basically. And he changed my entire game.
I love that. Were you the first foreign player to play in that league?
Yeah.
Do you feel pressure at that point? Because before that, like you said, at Bristol, at Cardiff, the standard wasn't always amazing, and you were obviously a very good player. Big fish in a small pond. You go across to somewhere like that. Do you feel pressure? Do you feel the weight of expectation? Do you feel you have to almost go above and beyond just to be at parity with the other people?
Yeah, look, I think for the first 6 months, I really, really, really struggled. I didn't know what to do with my life. I didn't know how to deal with the change of my life. I was on my own. I left my family, which, my family had always been my safety net at that point. And obviously they were still there, but they just were not there also. Nobody, everyone spoke Dutch, which is natural, obviously, for them. That's what they speak. But for me, it was so ridiculous. I was just you're just making sounds. I can't even break down what you're trying to say. So that was really hard. I hadn't been around that before. So I always say that first 6 months for me was the hardest of my entire career. And I almost gave in, almost came home. But then after Christmas, it switched, and football got a little bit easier because I was learning and I was developing and I was getting the gist of the Dutch way, the total football. And then I loved every minute of it. I learned a little bit of Dutch and was going to school and trying to understand their language, and had made better relationships with the girls in the changing rooms. And I still speak to loads of them to this day, because honestly, Dutch people are the fucking best, and they are great fun. So yeah, I stayed there, and I'd say my second year, we won the title the first year, but I'd say the second year, I was just great. It took me a year. They always say you need time, and that's why everyone always comes to the Prem, need time. I needed time to adapt. But the second year just flew. It was great. It was really fun.
How come you get you won 2 titles there? Obviously enjoyed the experience off the field as well as on the field, which I'm not surprised. I've been to Amsterdam once. I fucking get it. I completely get it.
Yeah.
How come you came back? Because you came back to Bristol for a bit. What was the thinking there?
Yeah, look, in hindsight, I probably would have stayed if I was going back to make a better decision. And I left in their winter window.
Yeah.
And I probably would have wished I had stayed to finish that season.
Okay.
You know, I do regret that. But I think the reason I came back was because the WSL was starting and everybody was like, oh my God, this is going to be so good. And I had been away for like 2.5 years at that point. So I was like, oh, it'd be nice to be closer to home.
Yeah.
And I kind of, you know, I'll say it, like, I want the WSL to be somewhere where I could play, because I want to be home, you know, like, I'm a home girl. I love Wales. I love my family. Wales is my fucking home, right? But I just never felt that the league could give me what I needed to be who I wanted to be. And I would say society as well would never, I don't think I'd be the person I am if I'd stayed in the UK. And I believe that 100%. So I think it was a part of me was like, right, yes, I'm going to go home now and everything's going to be perfect. Football's going to be amazing. I'm going to be myself and everything will be fine. And the truth of the matter is that just didn't fucking happen. You know, it just didn't. I was, you know, kind of sold a dream a little bit. The league was like not pro at all. It was like semi-pro, if you could call it that. There was like 4 girls that were only allowed to be professional on a team. The rest of you had to still work and that. And I was like, well, this is just, you know, not remotely what I thought it was going to be. But I signed a contract, so, you know, I gave them everything that I had. You know, we got Champions League, FA Cup final. I think we finished 4th. I mean, for Bristol, what we did was pretty phenomenal. But then I left because it was just never, ever what it was supposed to be.
Yeah. You mentioned there just about society as well. Was there a stark difference in being in Holland as a high-profile gay athlete as opposed to over here? Like over there, is it seen as, I want to word this so I don't sound stupid, but over here, you've said it, football wasn't seen as a girls' game, it was seen as a boys' game. What was it like over there? And those stereotypes, were they still over there in Holland as well, or was it much better?
Oh, look, maybe it was because I was foreign. I don't know. Or maybe it was because, you know, Amsterdam is a very open city. Or the girls were just comfortable in themselves. You know, I can't answer that question. All I can kind of answer was that when I was there, it definitely just allowed me to be who I wanted to be. Obviously, like, very gay, very happy about being very gay. Living that kind of life. You know, I remember going to Amsterdam Prides with the girls and it just being, you know what, it was exactly what I thought those things would be. Like just a festival of fucking love for people, right? I mean, you said you've been to Amsterdam, right?
And I have seen things in Amsterdam that
exactly.
I probably should never talk about.
Exactly. And so I think, you know, for all my time growing up in the UK, I never once felt that. And so, yeah, I guess when I came back, it was because it was like, I was a better person. I was more open. I was more honest with who I was, who I wanted to be. I didn't care about society as much at that point. But also I kind of, you know, I wanted to play football at home again. You know, I wanted to go back to my life with my family, with the person that I was now, after being 2.5 years of being over there and being so more open and far more accepting of myself. But I came back and, like, really, to be honest with you, like, nothing much had changed. So I was like, well, I don't want to stay here. So
Yeah.
I didn't.
Do you have agent, like, again, and this is probably my ignorance more than anything, like, again, I know that in the men's game, agents from a young age and all the stuff that comes with that. Are you doing that, or have you got an agent? Like, who's sorting all this out?
Back then, like, agents weren't there for the women's game.
Okay.
Agents for the women's game have kind of only really started the last 5 years, maybe. So,
and I suppose that says more money's come into the game. It's more profitable for them to be in the game. Because again, something I want to touch on later, like, I understand there's the call for equal pay and all that stuff. I know you played with Rapinoe, and she was very outspoken after the World Cup, and I can imagine, like, what did you know about these clubs when you were moving to them? Like, who sorted everything out for you?
Yeah, look, well, I did initially for a long time, and then I got an agent, obviously, last couple of years.
Yeah.
Just because I'm just lazy, really. But but back then, after the Bristol situation, I can't remember whether I stayed there for 1 year or 2 years. I think I stayed there for 1. The league in America started then, the NWSL, and I was just, again, like, I keep saying lucky with it. The manager that was at Arsenal at the time, Laura, went to Seattle.
Yeah.
And she emailed me and said, will you come to Seattle? And I was away with Wales at the time. And I remember being on the back of the bus, just getting it on my phone. I think I had a BlackBerry back at the time.
BBM, like.
My little BB. And yeah, I remember emailing her back saying, absolutely, done and dusted, count me in. And she was like, oh, don't you even want to talk about contract? I was like, no, not right now. Like, I don't care about that right now. I just want to get out. So that was, yeah, because I remember being at the back of the bus going, God, I don't know what I'm going to do. You know, I don't want to go back. Obviously, I was under contract at the time, but so I didn't really have a choice. And then, yeah, I got that email and I was like, oh, yeah, done, don't worry. And then I called me, Mom, I'm going to America. And she's like, what? And I'm like, yep. And that was it, really. Like, I didn't really have to think, obviously.
Yeah.
And
what
to be
an experience.
I've never looked back. I mean, this is the 9th year now. I've been there for almost a decade. And I have loved every single minute of it, like the good times, even the shit times. I've loved every minute of being in Seattle.
So for people who might not know, so you've been at Seattle for, what do you say, 9 years, and like we said earlier, every off season you've kind of gone to play at a different city in a different country. So you've I've got here Melbourne Victory, Glasgow, Frankfurt, Champions League there, just drop that in. Melbourne City, which, if you've gone from Melbourne Victory to Melbourne City, is it the same club rebranded, or are they different clubs?
Different clubs.
How did that go down? Because you've gone from one and then you've gone to the other. I've got here, you won a championship and a premiership at Melbourne Victory. Then you've gone to Melbourne City a couple of years later, 3 championships, 1 premiership, and one of them you were player coach. So you've got a manager's medal as well. Like, how did that go down?
Yeah, look, the Melbourne Victory to Melbourne City. To be fair, in my defense, Frankfurt was in the middle, so it wasn't like a direct crossover. And Melbourne City just had made a huge investment in the women's game, and I felt that was important to kind of be a part of at that time. So I went there 3 years in a row to win the treble back to back, which we did. won the double once, which was great, and then championship. And then, I decided that I didn't want to go back because I wanted a different challenge, like I talked about. And then that's when I went back to Europe and back to Leon. Like, you'll see a pattern of wanting to go back to Europe to try Europe again, because there's elements of Europe that I love. And then wanting to go back to the NWSL, W League style, because there's elements of that I really enjoy as well. And so, like I said, I just love the different challenges in all different areas of the game in different areas of the world, really,
You've been pretty successful in Europe. Obviously, we said Frankfurt, then Champions League there, and then Lyon. And I remember, again, Lyon were always one of those clubs I kind of always watched. They used to have Juninho play for them. So when I was growing up, like, I remember Juninho, like Brazilian, like he was class. And Lyon were always one of those teams that, like, I'm sure it was Lyon, I could be wrong. Were always one of those teams I kind of knew who they were. And again, there you won the League, the Cup, and the Champions League again. Was that the Champions League in Cardiff?
No. We went in Budapest.
Oh, okay. Because they had the Women's Champions League here when obviously Real and Juventus played.
Yeah.
I remember that. What was that? What was it? What are those competitions like at? Again, I can only talk from watching as a fan on the men's game across lots of different competitions.
Yeah.
What are the different levels of competition like from the Champions League for females across the different European leagues across that Australian standard? Like, what are the levels like?
Yeah, look, I'd say obviously the Champions League in the women's game is as special as it is in the men's. It's definitely the competition in Europe that everybody wants to be in.
Okay.
And I think when you're out of Europe, it's always a competition that you want to play in.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it just is. A lot of the reasons that I always go back to Europe is because I want a little vibe of the Champions League, and then I get my little vibe, and then I can go again. Right?
Yeah.
From league perspectives, I always say that the American League is the best. People have different opinions on that, which is absolutely fine. But for me, I've played everywhere. And the hardest, most difficult, most challenging league for me is the NWSL. It's the most competitive thing I've ever seen. Playing in the NWSL is like playing an international game every single week.
Okay.
Sometimes I'm just like, I am so tired. I just want like not an international game right now. I just want like a lower level, chilled out, like one of those European like basketball games where it's like, oh, you have the ball, and then you're like, no, you have the ball. And then you're like, okay, you have it, we'll just chill. Just sometimes I wish some of the games were like that, because I'm so tired. I'm just like, I cannot chase you right now. It's 100 degrees. It is 90% humidity. I am from Wales. I am sweating. Just like, give me 5 minutes. But the league is just not like that.
And that must be amazing, though, to travel to all those different. I assume it's Eastern and Western Conference. Is it just one across the board? Is that because they've got teams for one league across the whole of the country? Got you. Okay, cool. So what's that like? When I'm a bit of a tourist, like I love going on stags and all this. This is my cup of tea, right? What's it like when you're traveling to all these different cities, play these teams? You get a few days afterwards or whatever to like enjoy the place and have a bit of fun, or is it kind of come back the next day, straight back to work, we're playing again Saturday?
Yeah, unfortunately. I would say that sometimes you can get so we'll play like we're Seattle, say, right, we fly to Florida.
Yeah.
Right. Obviously like a 6-hour flight. 3-hour different time difference, so you got to go a few days earlier.
Okay, yeah.
So sometimes then you can go out and about, but honestly, by that point, you're trying to deal with the 3-hour time difference. You've just come from a normal climate to hell on earth over in Florida, so
Yeah.
you don't really want to like do too much. I think the one time we were in Florida and they had a hurricane warning.
Yeah.
And we were just like, I mean, I've never experienced anything like it in my life, right? I mean, we don't really get hurricanes over here. So
No.
I was just in the hotel watching this TV, and it was just like warning after warning after warning. And I was like, surely to God, we are not playing this game and we are just jetting off right now back to Seattle. Anyway, like, we're trying like waiting all day in a hotel room for the NWSL to be like, game's off, game's off, game's off. Game wasn't off. So the day before the game, we can't really do anything. So I'm like, well, I really want to go to Harry Potter World. So,
you know.
So to this day, like the day before the game, I just go to Harry Potter World with a couple of the girls, and I'm like, do you know what? Like, if we can play in a fucking hurricane, I can go to Harry Potter World, because obviously, like, anything goes at this point. So yeah, I remember, and I went there, and then I had the best time because I love Harry Potter. And then I came back into the hotel, and I was just like, listen, girls, like, I'm sorry about being like probably super unprofessional right now, but like, I don't even know I can't even think right now at the fact that there's a hurricane warning and we're about to go and play football. So, I mean, I don't know what you want from me at this point.
It's wild, that is. That's mad.
So yeah, it's a little story for you.
Class. I love that. Like, I love the fact that, again, like when I see players over here coming through the ranks in the men's game, they're almost vilified a little bit for going abroad and trying these new experiences. You know, you look at the German league, they keep taking a lot of our youngsters through, and it's almost seen as a negative, but the world is so much bigger than England or the UK, and like the experiences it can give you as a person outside of the white lines is phenomenal, because that's what builds your character, and that's what football sport, it's got in an instant. God forbid injury, don't get re-signed, whatever, you could be, you're left behind because there's 100 people coming through to take your spot. So I'm an advocate of people going and experiencing those things to get the best out of life, not just how much money they can earn.
I couldn't agree more, and I say it all the time. If anybody was to come to me and say, I've got an opportunity to go here, I've got an opportunity to go there, I always say, especially like even in the men's game, right? I always turn around and I look at the likes of, say, Jack Wilshere, or you know, any kind of young kid, to be honest. And I go, even Aaron Ramsey, right? Like, if you get an opportunity to go to Spain or Germany or France, you know, or Italy, like, go. The Premier League ain't going nowhere.
No,
it ain't going nowhere. How many of them go on loan to 5 or 6 different clubs within the English structure and never get anywhere anyway? Why not go to the Bundesliga or La Liga or Liga 1? Why not go to these leagues and learn football, A, in a different way, for one, you know, probably a little bit of a better way as well. And 2, learn some different cultures. I mean, you know, we always say over here that the football culture is this, or the hooligans, all the crap. You know, I don't believe that, but that is the stereotype that football has over here, right? Like, just go and learn different cultures. Like, it's not going to hurt you, or you'll get later on in your career and you're gonna have like regrets. Like, look at Jordan Sancho. Don't tell me that going to Dortmund has hurt his career at all. The
And like
opposite.
exactly,
The opposite.
friends for life, experiences, probably.
Look who he's playing with.
And I don't know this, but again, perception from the outside, he's away from the English and British press, which is probably when you're that high profile, and we've got this thing of building up youngsters in the UK to make them wonder kids, put them on a perch, and then the minute we can smash that away so they come falling back down. Like, it's probably class out there.
Yeah, 100%. He can just get on with his career, make his mistakes, learn from them, and the beauty, I would say, of the way that the Dutch work and the Germans and the French, when it comes to youngsters coming through, is they allow them to develop and to learn and to make mistakes and to learn from the mistakes. They create an environment that allows growth through mistakes, growth through learning. You don't get that in the Premier League. You go out. I mean, look what happened to De Bruyne at Chelsea. Look how good
Salah.
Yeah, there are so many of those stories because they go, they can't play in the Premier League. They're not good enough. Oh my God, get out of here. And that is the difference between these leagues. And I don't, for one, think that the Premier League is any better than these leagues because, they Bayern and Dortmund and the Atletico, Real, Barca, PSG, Lyon, all these teams that they sometimes swipe away the Premier League teams. Look at Leipzig just kicked United out of the frigging Champions League, for Christ's sake. Don't tell me that these leagues are not good.
Yeah.
They are good. They're different. Don't get me wrong. They're good. And they allow growth for youth in a different way. They create an environment, like I said, of growth learning that I don't think the English pyramid allows. You only have to look at how many kids go on loan. Chelsea send out 60% of their players on loan. It's ridiculous. Look at Ruben Loftus-Cheek right now.
Yeah, of course.
He's great.
Yeah.
Imagine if he had not gone on loan all this time and had gone to a nice club that valued him and then allowed him to just blossom. Really. Yeah. The pyramid is not for developing youth, and then at the end of the day they just kick him aside and say, no, you're not good enough.
And then on that point, then in the women's game, so you've played all over the world, because there's less players coming through those professional ranks. It's not quite, in terms of numbers, it's not quite as big a game, obviously, as the men's game.
Mm-hmm.
Is it natural then for the youngsters to come in and get game time because there is space for more people to go and play the professional game? But then also, do they get that because it's almost less of a business, in the sense that if United don't make the Champions League, it's brutal for them and their finances, and then they can't sign the next Bruno Fernandes, Paul Pogba, or whatever. But I don't know this. Forgive me if you think I'm being rude. I'm not. I don't mean that. But then if you're playing for Reading, Lyon, Melbourne, Frankfurt, whoever it is, it's not run almost as such a profitable. Maybe it's run as a profitable business, but so therefore the pressure is off for the manager to pick the best players or the players on the highest salaries or whatever. And actually, these youngsters do get a chance and they can blossom, which will then help grow the game further in those countries, whichever you're playing in.
Yeah, look, it's an interesting concept because I still don't think that even in the women's game, youth is really given that much of a chance.
Yeah.
And I think that's because there is a little bit of a gap and a drop off between your senior veterans and then your youth. Just because we don't have the academies like the boys have. We don't have the pathways that, you know, the girls are not getting full-time treatment from 12 to 15, or, you know, they're just not, you know, they're coming in twice a week, doing their stuff, you know. For me, we're only probably at the point now where coaches have some pressure. And I mean, the WSL has been around for like a decade now. So only now, I'd say, and you've seen it this year, where coaches have started to get the sack because they're not producing, because they're not doing this. So I think maybe now moving forward, the use of academy systems, youth, will be used better, and the youth players will be brought into the groups and developed in a way to allow them to push the players that are there, really. But you're right, the pool is still not big enough at all, and so you get, you know, arguably your squad players become players that play all the time, when arguably they should probably just be squad players. Like, the pool is just not big enough. You're always fighting for the same player. You know, we're not at a point yet in the women's game where you know, you can get like little hidden gems, or you go fighting over youngsters, because the pool is just not big enough. But what I will say is, I think that will change in the next 5 years, because I think now the women's game right now is at that tipping point where you kind of go hard, or like you go home at the end. And that's across the board, across the world. Clubs are now at the point where they're like, we're either going for this, or we're just going home. We're not wasting any money.
And I suppose that comes from 2 seconds. Just before I say that, give me 2. I'm just going to, because I want to get into something which is probably going to take a bit of a while. I'm just going to quickly nip to the toilet.
Okay, yeah, no problem.
And then we're going to get into that. Because I want to speak about almost like the society and the business side, but also then like the social media side and how that goes with it as well. This fascinates me, because it's not something I know loads about. So for me, I'm like, I don't mean to be awkward. I'm asking questions. I just obviously don't want to ask them in a way that I'm not sexist in the slightest, and I don't want it to come across like that. But I'm also genuinely interested in learning.
It's fine.
It's you said there about the, because this, I'm fascinated in this bit as well. I've had this conversation with a few female athletes.
Yeah.
You said the women's game was on this tipping point, and it's getting more coverage than ever. And, you know, there are big teams now like your Man United who have invested in their women's team. I don't know if they've invested in an academy as well. I don't know the infrastructure around it like I do the men's game. But hopefully this podcast is teaching people a lot about the women's game in general and where it can grow to.
Yeah.
I suppose if it's on that tipping point, is it going to be led by the clubs to just invest in it and hopefully sponsors come on board, and TV comes on board, and then the money comes back in, and it's that cycle of make money, put it back in, and grow these superstars, grow these personalities like yourselves? Or is it led by the TV companies? Is it led by businesses going, actually, I see a gap in the market here, I'm going to invest in the women's game in America, in Australia, Europe, wherever it is? Like, where is that growth going to be led? Who's it going to be led by?
Look, I think it's a bit of both, right? Like, I think right now society is at a point where it is, I think for so long women's sports were so underappreciated and so undervalued, even in the media world, TV world, everywhere, you know. I mean, men's sports they take over, right? They just do. And I'll always go back to when I was growing up, when I was watching the Prem. you know, it ain't nowhere near what the Prem is now. And the Prem is now what it is because of media, right? Take the media away from it, it's nothing, right? And so what we have to understand as females, and what society has to understand as well, is that all we're asking for is that the platform, the beginning of the platform that you gave the men 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Right? Because it has taken 20 years, by the way, for men's sports to be where it is now.
Yeah.
So I'm not sitting here saying we have to be equal. We're 20 years behind equal.
Yeah, of course.
20 years behind equal. So I'm not stupid, right? And as female athletes, we're not stupid either, believe it or not. Like, I can assure you, we're brilliantly smart. We're fucking brilliant. We get it. But what I never understand from people that constantly fight against women athletes is their constant, well, you don't bring in money. Well, you never brought in money 20 years ago. The only difference is 20 years ago, media, society, TV decided together, corporate sponsors decided, we're going to push this, and then we're going to get money back in like 5 years. That's what they decided, right? And it worked. Well done. Like, you were absolutely spot on. You were great. It's like a multi-billion-dollar company. Good job, right? So what we're saying now is, we could be there. Easy in a heartbeat. You've seen the tournaments, you've seen the league, you've seen the figures. It's there. Everything is there. All you've got to do, your corporate brands, your TV deals, your media, all you have to do is care. Because everything surrounding women's sports and these athletes is there. And I'd go as far, actually, and say that as athletes, we probably have more to give because women have to go through so much more. And that's a fact. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I'm not trying to be here and say we're the superior sex. I'm not saying that. But I can assure you, you line up 100 female athletes and you line up 100 male athletes, the majority of people would sit down and have a beer with the female athletes because their lives, their stories, their personalities are just far more intriguing.
I feel it's going to be led, it possibly could be led by the media, because if they put you on TV more, naturally you will get a bigger fan base. And dare I say it, and I could be wrong, but dare I say it, in certain countries and in certain regions, because of social media, it could grow at a faster rate, because you can be an instant access role model to someone now, where before it was a case of, when I was growing up, it was watching Match of the Day or ITV for the Champions League or whatever it was back then. I can't remember. Like, now everything, and this I suppose might lead us on to social media, but I see two sides to it. Like, it can be a great tool, and I don't know what your relationship with social media is like, but it can be a great tool for some things, but it can also be it hanging, like it can be absolutely disgusting. And like, I'll be honest, right? I've probably seen clips, and this is not right in the slightest. And if it was a bloke doing it, I'd laugh as well. Like, I've probably seen clips of blokes where they fuck up or whatever, and you're like, that's a professional footballer. Like, yeah, nice one. You laugh about it, but that's just for your mates. What I don't see on Twitter, which I do see in the women's game, is a girl messing up, playing badly, whatever, and it gets lambasted on social media, and it's like, almost like, these girls are professional, like, this is a joke that they think they're professional. And it always comes back to, they should get paid the same as the men, should they? It always comes back to that whenever I see it. And I know that was, there was a lot of talk about it after the World Cup when the USA won, and she came out and said all that. And I see, I work in commercial. I see the side of, well, if it's not making money, it's not going to bring in as much money. But I also see your point of, if you gave us a chance, in time, it would grow and make you money. So it's chicken and egg. Which one comes first? Like,
sorry.
what's that's right.
And yeah, you're absolutely right. Look, the USA national team, probably the only team in the world that probably make more money than the men.
In soccer, in football.
Yeah, in soccer.
Yeah.
So whatever they're doing probably doesn't really correlate to the rest of the world.
Yeah, okay.
From the fact that they can actually go back, because they do bring in a huge amount of revenue, and they win World Cups and they win Olympics, and then men's fail to qualify for World Cups, right? They're probably the only country in the world where it's so different, right? I understand the equal pay argument of the business side of it. We don't make money, there's no revenue. I get that, right? I understand.
Yeah.
But with equality, it's not just about money, right? People don't, and that's what people never understand. Okay. Equality is environment, facilities, medical, kit, food. Equality is the understanding that I am an elite athlete, he is an elite athlete, treat us the same.
Okay.
Across the board, you have to treat us the same. That doesn't happen, right? What I do to play for my country, for Wales, being the most capped person ever, I do exactly what Aaron Ramsey does, Gareth Bale does, Joe Allen does. So regardless of money, throw that in the bin right now. How you treat me should be on equal measures of how you treat them.
Is it better at international standard with the FAW?
It is better. It's getting better. I'm not going to fight about the FAW. I think, they're doing what they can. They can be better, but they're doing what they can. But my point is, that is the basic level of equality. There should be on the board, across the board, with all these clubs, with United, with Arsenal, with Chelsea, with City, at Reading, at Spurs, at every single club, at the Reign, at Orlando, at Juventus, every single club, the basic level of elite athletes, the treatment that you're going to give them, that should never, ever, ever, ever change. That should be equal. Now, then you go to the business side of it, and you can go about money, and you can go about that, fine. We can have that conversation, and we can go down those routes and navigate what that looks like. But we're not even at the bare minimum of equality. We're not even close to being at the bare minimum of equality. So I'm not.
That's just the basic tools to do the job.
The job, yes. The basic tools to do the job. So I'm not even gonna get to pay. We can't even start getting to pay. Do you get what I'm saying? I'm not even interested in the pay. Because first of all, I just want the bare minimum equality to do my job.
And I suppose I don't know the ins and outs of. I mean, I've seen the All or Nothing documentaries on Spurs and Man City, right? But I don't know the ins and outs of the clubs. But what is stopping a club like Spurs or Man City? And when you've played in Europe, I don't know if the female Lyon's team and the men's Lyon team are more aligned potentially than they are over here. I'm not sure if it is better over there. But what is stopping, if training finishes for the men at 2 o'clock, now it's not ideal, but why can't the women then use exactly the same facilities, but almost start their day at 2? So that you're all using, like Man United, if you're all using Carrington, for example, as a training facility, why can't that happen? What's stopping that?
Yeah, look, I think more of the question is if Carrington or City or Chelsea, to be fair, I think Chelsea are absolutely fucking great with their girls. I think City are good as well. But like the likes of United and Arsenal and Spurs, the Reading even, I mean, to be fair, I think we're going to Bearwood, so we're fine. Like, but Everton and all that. I mean, their training grounds have about 25,000 pitches. Why can't they just train on one of those pitches at a normal time?
Yeah, okay, I don't know, yeah.
No, and also, what does it matter if the male team and the female team are like crossing paths? Like, what on earth do you think is going to happen? Like, my
point was if you look at Man United and you take the women's team away a sec, you've got first under 23, first team squad under 23s, and then I can imagine teams and teams of academy players, and there's hundreds of players. So maybe they couldn't accommodate another 30, 40 players. Maybe they can. I don't know. You're telling me they can, then fucking fair enough.
But my point is they should.
Yeah, okay.
It's not about whether they can or whether they can't. It's the same as Spurs. It's not about whether they can or whether they can't. It's about, and I'll always go back to the same point. If you are going to have a women's team and you are going to say, this is our women's team, this is Man United, this is one of the, if not one, the biggest club in the world.
Yeah.
You're telling me you can't accommodate for 30 women? You can. You can.
Yeah.
You just choose not to. Same as Spurs. You're going to pay, I can't even imagine how much money you pay for that Olympic Stadium and a brand new training ground. Just tell me you can't get them in there. You can, Dan. I know you can. Yeah. I know you can. You know you can. You just don't want to, right? Same at Arsenal. Same at all these clubs. Same at Everton. Like, you cannot be a Premier League team and have all the facilities that you have and make up some stupid, shitty excuse as to why the women can't go in the training ground.
Yeah. Because
that's all it is it's an excuse, because the amount of money these clubs have, and I know that a lot of it is debt, right? I mean, let's be real here. The Premier League don't run in the surplus. They live in debt. That's how they run. It's going to cost you a couple million. Not even that. Not even a couple million. But let's say you just budget a couple million, right? Oh my God. You probably spend more on community outreach.
But it would transform your whole pyramid.
Transform the entire thing. Yeah. So my question is, like it always is, why? Why is women's sports so threatening to the male game? I don't understand it. Why?
Do you get much, on the playing side, if you are at Reading, Lyon, where there's established men's teams that we know in the UK, we will know who they are. Do you get much? You might not get much interaction in terms of training at similar times or on the same pitches, same facilities. But then, do you get much interaction in terms of being around the players at all, or media duties or promotional duties? Because every club will promote the women's game or promote their female kits at the beginning of the season for season launch and kit launch and ticket launch and all that. Do you get much interaction on the male side as well? Reading, Lyon, wherever it might be.
So Well, yeah, at Leon, it was nice because we use the same pitches really, so everything was in the same complex. They'd have their like changing room and then we'd have ours. They'd have their gym, which was real nice, bigger than ours, but it was nice. But if you needed to use it, you could use it. And we, there was like 6-7 pitches that we would just use, but they were like same pitches really. Like they would walk to their pitch, we would walk to our pitch, like no dramas. And then we'd have lunch at the same cafeteria. So there was more interaction there, I would say. That was the same at Melbourne City as well. There was interaction at Melbourne City, which was nice. I mean, you still get the whole men's are using the gym now, like, so you have to leave, and I'm always just like so confused with what on earth these coaches feel like's gonna happen in the gym.
There's 60 people in the gym. No one's gonna start like trying to fucking finger each other or whatever.
I'm like, I don't understand what you feel like we're gonna do in the gym. Like, like I have to squat, he has to squat. Like, we're both athletes. I know a lot of coaches and that think that female are a distraction, but I mean, I don't really feel like that's our fault. Like, I feel like if you're telling me that like your player can't do his gym session because the girls are doing a gym session, like I feel like you need to have a conversation with your boys more than anything.
100%. That's exactly the same argument as you see on Twitter about girls wearing, they're wearing this, they're wearing that, or whatever. It's like, no, educate the men not to touch them. Educate the men not to be pigs.
Let's just remind. Sorry, I have to charge my iPad. Maybe we should just remind this situation that we're all. Oh, hang on, sorry.
That's all right. Go on.
We're all like professional athletes, and if you're doing rehab, then you're doing rehab. Like, we're not in a nightclub or anything. We're just all trying to get to the same point here. But I feel that that's where we're at right now, and we have to break those barriers down.
Which is stupid because it's a job. And in my job, I work for a radio station, and if it was like only the men can come into this side and only the women, like it just wouldn't fucking work.
It is so, I'd really love to sit down with like the corporate side or the GMs of these clubs and just ask them, why is it like the forbidden fruit of the world that a men's team and a women's team interact if they're playing for the same club? Like we're not in high school. Like, this is not like a high school dance.
And also, you're gonna find each other on social media if you want to get together anyway. So
I think Birmingham boys and girls had a party the other day. I mean, not only did they find each other on social media to create this party, they found themselves on social media breaking COVID rules to have a party. Like, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. It's probably, you're probably safe that you go into the gym, that it's probably not going to happen because there's we have to do our strength program, so that's like pretty important. But it's a really interesting concept that we still live in a society where males and females just cannot interact unless they're doing something they shouldn't be doing. And I just I just fundamentally disagree with it on so many levels.
I appreciate I'm taking a bit of your time here, but whilst we're all talking about sort of society and the world that we live in, like, what is it like being a high profile gay athlete in today's social media world with Twitter, which can be toxic, Instagram can be toxic, and everyone feels pressure to be something they're not just to get a couple of extra likes? You've obviously got your MBE for your working football and with the LBGT community and everything you've done there. Like, what is it like being you with that following, who's obviously passionate, great at a craft, but also outspoken and not afraid to say what they think?
Yeah, it's tricky. But you know, I would definitely say in the earlier days it was very difficult. You know, there's just been so many idiots around just making comments that, you know, are there to designed to hurt you or designed to stop you from being who you are. I'd say now, obviously, it still happens, but there's just no impact to it anymore. I'd say especially when I'm really outspoken on that topic. So if I'm really outspoken on, obviously, like the LGBTQ community, or racism, or, you know, poverty, you know, I'm kind of a little bit outspoken on politics as well. That you know, we've seen society nowadays, it's either left or right, you know. You have to pick a side for everything nowadays, which I don't agree with at all, but that's just the way it goes.
I like being in the middle because I can pick the best parts and I can learn from both parties.
I think it's important that there's a middle area, but that middle area is being taken away right now. But yeah, you know, and especially when I talk about those things, of course I get, you know, bullshit. You know, I'll always get shit about being gay, you know, it's a sin, or, you know, it's the devil, or, you know, you need to go repent and all this crap, honestly.
Who from?
Just people on Instagram, you know, they don't have any names or whatever, it's the same. But I don't even really respond. But if I do respond now, it's more of a you know, I'll just send them a rainbow flag or happiness. You know, I don't really interact with those people anymore, and what they say doesn't really bother me. Even it's the same with if I ever comment on the men's game, right? Like, like I get some abuse for being gay, I get some abuse for being outspoken, whatever. It's part and parcel of it, so I'm not that bothered about it. But
it should be part of it. Like, it's sad that you just brushed that off as being part and parcel of it.
I know, but I think, you know, everyone always says to me, you know, why isn't there out gay man in football, or when are you going to see that? And honestly, I always say, like, hell fucking no, you can't. You would need a robot to do that in the men's game right now. A robot. You have people being racist if somebody misses a shot on goal.
Yeah.
Imagine what would happen if they thought that person was gay.
It'd be interesting because in rugby, like, Gareth Thomas came up, but he was already a rugby legend.
Yeah.
And I think it was almost not like a badly kept secret, but I think a lot of people close to him and where he lived might have known. I don't know, but might have known. So when it did come out, it wasn't like, it was a surprise to lots, but not everyone.
He was a
legend. He was a legend already. So you're not going to slate him like if, I don't know, like a Beckham. I don't know. Football's different though. Football is very tribal and it is very different.
It's so fickle, man.
Sport is.
I did an interview with Gareth, actually. I love him. He's a friend of mine.
Yeah.
And I said to him, like, do you ever wish that you'd have done it whilst you were still playing? And he was like, yeah, he does. Because I think he knew he'd have far more impact if he was still an active player.
There must be players playing in the men's game who are homosexual and haven't come out because they're afraid of the backlash. There must be, just out of the pure percentages.
Science says yes, 100%. Like,
yeah.
But, you know, and everyone, you know, I'm a Stonewall ambassador, obviously, and do a lot of work surrounding this. then when people say to me, do you want it? And I'm like, I don't think I want whatever is coming for that guy to come to him. I don't.
Yeah.
It's not. I think for now we have to just keep pushing what we're pushing, and hope that one day there's a guy that is so secure, so strong, has such a good support system around him that when it happens, he doesn't break, because it is not worth a single soul breaking just for society to want somebody to come out. I don't think I would ever forgive myself if we pushed it and pushed it and pushed it, and under the intense scrutiny of society and social media, we made a guy break. I couldn't. I don't think I'd ever forgive myself.
I can't imagine the backlash. Like, you see, like, I follow Man United, and you see Harry Maguire have a bad game. The fucking abuse. Like, was it Wan-Bissaka or someone the other week? He's got monkey chants and that in the DMs. Like Ian Wright recently. Like, I can't imagine. Which is like, my brother is homosexual. My sister is lesbian. Like, I've grown up with it. Like, I couldn't give a fuck, right? As long as you're a decent person, you're a decent bloke, you're a decent woman, like, you're one of my mates. Do you know what I mean? I can't imagine the abuse that would come someone's way.
And obviously you can protect it, right? Your changing room, your locker room, it's a sacred place, and it is a beautiful place.
But is the female's locker room more open because there is more openly gay athletes in that sport than there is men's? And if one was to come out in the United changing room, for example, would they be okay with it, or would they treat them differently? Like, it'd be fascinating to know how it genuinely went on behind closed doors.
I do think now the locker room would be no issue. I do. Yeah. And I think that's why we probably are getting closer to it.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, as much as society and the locker rooms are getting better, I honestly believe society is getting worse.
Yeah, so, agree.
So it's just too hard. Like I mean, you see what's happening with governments. You see what's happening in America with the Republicans and Trump, and how far that was regressing. To be fair, how far even we're regressing with the Tories. Like, it's not up to a footballer to try and change society, and they are doing it. Like Rashford's doing it. Like athletes have far more of a say in society than even governments at this point.
Yeah. But
governments are breaking society and creating such a divide that backlashes for things like that, they're just so, at the moment you're almost brushing racism under the carpet at this point on social media, which is fucking crazy.
It's mad. Like, I don't know. I don't have the answers. I don't know what more could be done. No. But when I see the Rainbow Laces campaign for one weekend and it's gone again, I don't feel that's enough. And there's probably loads being done which I'm not aware of. I see, you look at racism, you've mentioned a couple of times there, the take the knee. Well, the two sides to that is you got all these people, why are they taking the knee? It's disrespect, all this fucking bollocks. And then you've got the people who are in line with taking the knee, but now it's almost feels like it's being done for the sake of it. And actually, what's the next evolution of that to keep it relevant, powerful, impacting with today's society? Because people are still being racist, and there's obviously not the consequence. Like, freedom of speech is wicked. Freedom of consequences, well, there should be consequences, actually, what you say, even if there is freedom of speech.
Yeah, look, freedom of speech is not freedom of consequences. You can have freedom of speech. Nobody's stopping you from saying anything in this entire world. You're not going to jail for it. Freedom is, you take away a freedom of speech, that means you go to jail, right? You go to jail, you've broken the law because you said something that the government doesn't want you to say. That's never going to happen. You can go with your mate down a pub, have a drink, you can say whatever you want. No, you are free to do that. That is freedom of speech. But that does not mean that you are free of consequences. If your speech is in a place of a workplace or society where it's hateful, where it incites violence, where it incites fear, then you have consequences. That's life.
Yeah.
So I think we get caught up sometimes in this whole freedom of speech means you can say what you want and you can't get done for it. No. That's not how this works. You can't incite violence. You can't be hateful with your speech and not have a consequence. That's not freedom of speech. That's not. And I think society is getting a little bit caught up in what is what here, with hiding behind what freedom of speech really is and really means.
It's fascinating. Like, I could genuinely sit here and talk to you for hours about this, about loads of different, like, I've got so much stuff written down, but I appreciate we've already been an hour. Like,
it's okay.
Not to park it under, because
no.
I don't. And I want people to hear this, and I want people to understand females in football, women's football, and where it is. That homosexuality is okay in football, and whether it's male, like, I want people to listen to you and actually be inspired. If you're a young girl coming through, not to be worried about being a gay athlete, being a footballer in a man's world, being a whatever you want to be. Like, I want people to understand that and realize it's okay. And I'm sure, you know, there is loads of great work done. It's probably a whole nother podcast. And I'd love to have you back at some point, and we can put the world to rights the best we can over an iPad and over Zoom. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, for sure.
I'd love to chat about your Wales career and most capped Welsh footballer, 100 around 120 caps, 30 odd goals. Like, it's amazing to get capped at any level, and then at senior level just once, to be able to do it 120 times across a career spanning over a decade. Like, when you look back on your Wales career so far, how did that come about? What were your emotions in the beginning? What was your first sort of foray into that international fold like?
Yeah, it was an interesting story, actually. The guy who gave me my first cap, Andy BE, great guy. He also was a coach of mine when I was younger, and told me that I was way too small and I would never make it, never play for Wales. So that's really funny, because then he gave me my first cap and said, "Oh, I might have been a bit wrong."
Love that.
Which was fun, yeah. And I think for me, my career started, you know, like in the fast lane. I went on my first camp, played my first game, started, you know, I didn't really go into a camp and then have to wait a long time before I played. I just kind of went into the camp, my first camp, played my first game on my first camp. So I was kind of thrown into it really in the you know, in a big pond. But, you know, I never really looked back. I loved every minute of it, and I knew that this was definitely something that I was going to cherish, you know, for the rest of my life. And something that not only I was going to cherish, but something that I wanted to be a priority for my life. And I wanted to be part of the Welsh team that made football relevant, or women's football relevant in Wales, because it just wasn't relevant for so long of my career. And that's why, you know, like, people always people always talk about success, right? And how you measure success. And, you know, we've never been to a major tournament, and hopefully we get there soon. But I would never look back on my career as a Welsh national team player and not say that it has not been a success, because what we've been able to do in our nation for women's football has been nothing short of incredible. And it has been so nice to be a part of that.
How does that, when you look back like that and you're talking like that, how does it make you feel that Wales have never been to a major tournament, yet you as an individual have won everything there is to win in the club game, and you've played with and against the best players in the world who have been to those tournaments? Like, is it regret? Is it just you're a generation too early? Like, how far away are Wales from getting to those tournaments?
Oh, like, not even far. We're so freaking close. We should have qualified for the Euros, honestly. I can't even talk about it. But, you know, I don't have regret. I don't. Like, people always say, oh, do you wish that you were 10 years younger? Like, do you wish that you were coming through now? And, you know, I don't. I have had the fucking best career. I've loved every minute of my career. I have, you know, and sometimes it's been shit, sometimes it's been absolutely great, and I've been lucky enough to experience it all, experience the absolute pits of women's football, then experienced it growing into starting to kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel, and then now I can see, you know, that we are kind of probably where we should be, but we're gonna just fly. Like, we're gonna just fly. And do I want to be a part of the fly? Maybe, but I'm also just content. You know, I'm not gonna live my life wanting something else, because I don't, because I'm just happy and playing my part, really.
Yeah, and FAW, I'll give the FAW some kudos there. Like, we work with them a bit around the men's game, and then some of the home women's fixtures as well. I know that Polly does a lot of the pitch side stuff with the women's game, and I know Fionn, who does a lot of the Fionn Miles. She does a lot of the video content.
Great.
Yeah. And like, so I see it quite a lot. So actually, like, weirdly, I'm English, but I don't follow the England socials as much as I follow the Welsh one. So I see loads of the great work that's being done. Sorry. What's like, what, I suppose, like, what's the future for you in that capacity? Because, like you said, you know, you're not getting younger. You don't wish you were 10 years younger so that you were coming through the system now. But what does that future look for you internationally and at club level? You know, you're obviously fit. You're still playing to the highest standard. How long can that go on for?
Yeah, look, I think a couple more years. You know, my body feels, you know, great.
That's good.
I feel, you know, like I was 20 again. I don't feel like I'm, you know, 34. I've looked after myself pretty well. So yeah, I think I've got a couple of years left, but I'm also at this stage where football doesn't define me, you know. I've worked really hard over the last 5 years to change that narrative. You know, for so long it does define you, and you can't get away from that, because I think it has to define you for you to get to the top. I think it has to consume you. You have to just eat, breathe, drink, your training, your life. You have to do that to get to the top, and then you have to do that even more to stay there. But I definitely think I've been making sure over the last years from my kind of transition, I don't think like it defines me anymore. Like nothing has changed with how I work, how I live, how I train, how I act, but more from a mental shift that it just doesn't define who I am as a human being. And so I think that'll be much easier for me then to accept the transition.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important. Like that self-awareness of the transition to retirement is going to be really fucking hard. And if I don't start to do the mental kind of work to ensure that it doesn't break me when I retire and I feel like my identity has left me, then I'm going to struggle, right? And obviously I don't want to do that. So I've been doing a lot of work on the mental side to break away from my identity as a human and my identity as a footballer. And I'd say I'm in a pretty good spot. So I don't, retirement and that later part of my career doesn't scare me. I'm really excited for whatever happens after football. I know that I'm going to be working within it probably at some point.
I was going to say, you've got so much experience, like surely coaching and giving back to that next generation coming through. Or
look, I'll always give my time 100%. I also think that I really want to work within like a hierarchy and change boardrooms and you know, that kind of mentality of what we were talking about earlier, right? I definitely feel like that's where I want to go. But it's just kind of navigating that again, you know, like navigating what that looks like.
Can you see yourself in a suit?
No, I look great in the suit, not gonna lie.
I love that. That's class. Hey, look, I don't see why you can't do it though. Like, who is pioneering that change? I don't know. Like, I see the good. You know, the one thing I will say about, you know, football in particular now is how it's embraced. And we had Michelle Owen on the show, who's a Sky Sports News presenter. And where Sky Sports News have kind of gone away from the presenters back in the day who looked great, but you don't know what their knowledge was like. Now they are broadcast journalists first and foremost, and now the equality, or the better equality, maybe it's not quite equal yet, but the better equality in punditry and pundits and match side reporting and all that other thing. So I think football has done well there. I could be wrong, but just my humble opinion, seeing it from the outside. There's definitely space above that in the boardrooms of clubs, FIFA, UEFA, whoever it is, for someone to champion and pioneer that next roadmap of women's football for generations to come. So why shouldn't it be you? Like,
yeah, no, look, I think that's definitely where my mind is going, that where I eventually want to end up is in the rooms that are making the decisions on what women's football looks like. But I mean, getting to those rooms is going to be a task, right? It's going to be a fight. It's going to be hard, but I definitely think that that's where I want to go. Just have to figure out how to get there, but I'm sure I will.
Hey, well, look, you obviously got the tenacity to fucking do what you want to do and say what you want to say. So I've got no doubt that in 5 years' time we'll be seeing you in boardroom somewhere, mate.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, you know, we'll see. But I definitely, like I said, I do want to do that, because I do think that that's the last step for women's football. If there's ever going to be some real big, meaningful change that promotes equality on every aspect, not just pay, on every single aspect, the decisions are made in the boardrooms, right? We all know that. And so we have to get we have to get women in those boardrooms to be sure to be able to make change. And right now we're just like nowhere near that at all.
No, I know. I think it'll come. I think the room for, and I think that in time businesses will see the commercial aspect, which will help. I think media will get involved more and more than it is now, and I think it will come in time. So hopefully we're looking back at this in 5 years' time and you are championing that and there is some real change. I'd enjoy to see that 100%.
Yeah, hope so.
2 final questions.
Okay.
One, what club would you like to have played for? Wish that they might not have a women's team, but if there was one club that you could play for in the world, who would it be and why?
Look, right, I have supported Man United since I was a kid.
Yeah.
Eric Cantona is my man.
Right? I've actually got a signed picture.
No.
Of the man there. Yeah. And it's got a certificate and everything.
Class. I wish years ago, I mean, they've only just started, which is sad in itself. But I mean, better late than never. But years ago, I used to grow up thinking, man, I wish I could play. I wish United had a team. I wish United had a team. I wish United had a team. Just because I was a massive United fan, you grow up supporting biggest club in the world, right? Like Cantona, Scalzi, Sparky, Colin York. I mean, my God, it was like,
yeah.
So when I was a kid, that was what I'd always wanted, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, like I said, it's nice to see that they have a team now, but
surely you can drop a DM into someone and
look, I'm so happy at Seattle. Seattle's my jam. I love it. I can't see me playing for anybody again. But when I was growing up, that was always the dream, right? United, 100%. Like, wow. But they've got ways to go, right? Like the brand fucking new and got loads of shit to figure out. Doing a great job. But, I wish 10 years ago that they'd got their shit together,
Hey, look, never say never. You don't know what's going to happen, pal. I'll get a United shirt with your name on the back, don't worry.
There we go.
I will, 100%. Knowing everything you know now about what football's given you as a person, as a career, as a means of traveling the world, meeting the friends you've met, going through the hard times, the good times, the characteristics, what would you say to someone who's listening to this now and not quite sure about whether their sexuality in sport, or a girl who wants to play football but feels that she won't be accepted? Like, what would you say to someone in that kind of situation?
Look, I think I'd say that pursuing a career, not even a career, playing football because you want to do it, because it brings you joy, is something that you should never question. And that every day there are people out there like myself fighting to ensure that it is a safe place for you, right? And we will do everything that we can as players right now, as coaches right now, to try to create environments that makes it so safe for you to just go and be yourself and enjoy football, and not only enjoy football, but learn about friendship and learn about teamwork and if you get to go to another country, learn about culture, learn about the world. It is a no-brainer. Like, don't ever stop, ever, because what it gives you is like a happiness that you just won't find anywhere else. And that we are doing that, like as professional athletes right now, what alongside playing, which obviously is a big part of what we do, there is always a part of us that want to keep pushing the game to make it better for the youth and for you guys, right? And so I just say that it is one of the best things that you could ever do. It really is, and that you don't have to worry, because we're gonna make sure that it's safe for you. That's what we're gonna do. Like that's like a no-brainer. That's our job, to make sure that you guys are so safe.
I love it. I genuinely hope that, like, I'll show my daughter this. She gets amazed. She's amazed when I show her like who I've had on the podcast and the fact you're a footballer, and that she'll absolutely love it. And like, hopefully it inspires. If it inspires just one person, I feel that we've done something good tonight.
I hope so.
Thank you. So, hey, look, I just want to say massive thanks to Tiny Rebel, because they give us a couple of beers every episode. Big thanks to everyone that subscribes, downloads, rates, and reviews. I would love some feedback on this episode. Check out catflapchats.com, where you can find our back catalogue of previous episodes. You can find our merch and our hats on there, and there's socks as well, sports socks. Catch us on Instagram TV every morning with a little bit of daily motivation, inspiration. Brought to you by JVG Group. Jess, that was class. I could genuinely, I hope when this is all over, and I'm not just saying this isn't lip service. Yeah. I hope when this is all over, we can catch up, because there are so many things I'd love to look like. I feel I've learned today about you, because we didn't know each other before this, but for me, the women's game and its place in society, and I'd love to just stupid shit like, are transfers the same in the women's game? And do you have a transfer deadline day? And do you just stupid shit like that, which I know in the men's game, but I'm ignorant. I've been too ignorant to learn what it's like in the women's game. Just stuff like that. And I hope that as the game grows, it becomes more of the norm. And actually, we're not talking about the men's game and the women's game. We are just talking about football.
The game. Yeah, 100%.
I hope so. Hey, look, thank you so much for coming on. It's
been
an absolute pleasure.
No problem.
We'll keep in touch. This will be out Monday, so I'll drop you a line. I'll tag you and everything.
All right.
And I really appreciate it. Best of luck for the future, and we'll catch up soon, all right?
Yeah, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. You take care, all right?
Bye.